Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Heather Hirsch. I'm the lead physician of the Menopause and Midlife Clinic at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, where I'd love to see you as a patient. Otherwise, since I cannot see all of you in my office, I have created and started this YouTube channel here where we talk all things menopause, midlife, hormones, so that you can feel educated to bring about menopause awareness and to raise advocacy and take this to the next level, because knowing what happens during the end of your reproductive cycle is just as important, if not more important of a transition than the beginning of our reproductive life cycle, which we learn so much about. Gosh, even I can remember watching the video in gym class about going through puberty. We don't get that on the other side. We don't get very much. And so I am so passionate about raising awareness and teaching about menopause. And so that is why I started this channel. All right, today's video, I wanted to talk about how long can you take hormone therapy for? This is a question that I get asked quite frequently, and this is also a reason that I see patients on a consultative basis, because they have been told that they needed to stop their hormone therapy and they no longer felt good. So we're going to be talking about that today. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know I didn't have a video up last week. I really try my hardest to put up new videos every Friday for you, but occasionally my other things that I do for work get in the way. So anyways, hope you all had a really good Thanksgiving. A couple other places to follow me on Instagram. I'm at hormone.health.doc. On Twitter, I'm at Heather Hirsch MD. I have my own podcast, Women's Health by Heather Hirsch, which you can find in the description bar below, links to that, as well as my website, heatherhirschmd.com. All right, with that out of the way, I want to talk about how long can you take hormone therapy for. And instead of dragging this all the way out and telling you the answer at the end of the video, I'm actually going to start by telling you the answer right away, but then I want to explain why. And I do think it's really important to listen, because the explanation part is so important. The answer, both the American Colleges of OBGYN, which stands for ACOG, and the North American Menopause Society, NAMS, both of those say that there is no longer any time period or point at which you must stop hormone therapy. So you can take it for as long as you might need. And the way that I explain this to my patients in the office is I say it is a shared decision making every single year. And I have plenty of women who say, never take my hormone therapy for my cold dead hands. And I say, we won't. We'll give it to you for as long as you remain on this earth. And I have some women who want to try and come or wean off every single year, because they just simply don't want to be on a medication or another medication perhaps, and they want to know if they can come off their medication. So right, there's kind of those two extremes, and then there's everyone else in between, and we're all very or a little different, right? All right, so why is this? Because you might remember, or you might be one of those patients who was told at your magic 60th birthday or your magical 65th birthday, or this may have happened to your mom or your friend. That's very common because of the shift in the philosophy that, well, you've hit 65, you have to stop your hormone therapy. Why was that? Well, I'm going to take you down a trip down a memory lane and give you a little bit of background on why that used to be the mantra, and again, why it no longer is. So, if you have not already watched my video on the safety of hormone therapy, I will link it here. That's a really good one, and it explains a lot about the Women's Health Initiative. And if you guys want a whole video on the Women's Health Initiative, I lecture about this a lot. I teach the findings of the WHI. I am not an author of the WHI, so full disclosure, I think the WHI was a really good and well-designed study. It's just that there was a mismatch between what the media sort of presented, what was actually studied, and that's why it's become quite confusing to really understand and interpret all of its results, because there are many. In fact, women are still enrolled in the WHI, and that stands for the Women's Health Study, if I didn't say that before. All right, so in the Women's Health Study, or the WHI, which I will call it for short, this was the biggest randomized controlled trial on hormone therapy up to this point, and actually most likely still in the current time in 2020. So in the 1990s and the late 2000s, they took hundreds of thousands of women to put them in the WHI. There's actually a non-randomized control, and there's a randomized control arm where they separated women without a uterus, because if you have had a hysterectomy, you no longer have a uterus, you can take estrogen only, and women with an intact uterus, if you have an intact uterus, you must take an estrogen and progesterone. All right, so in the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, the WHI was ongoing. So again, you had two groups of women. It ended abruptly in the early 2000s due to an apparent increased risk of invasive breast cancer. But again, I can talk more about that as well, because the association of hormone therapy and breast cancer is very, very complex. It's not actually as straightforward as it sounds. However, the majority of women in that study was on average age 63 and a half, and there was a wide age range from 51 to 79. What they found in a couple years later, in the mid-2000s, again in 2013 and 2017, is that it really matters what age you start your hormone therapy. It really, really makes a big difference. Some people call this the window or the timing hypothesis. It has a lot of different names, both scientific and slang, but what they all really mean is that when you are shortly after your last menstrual period, within a year or so, in fact, the window is 10 years, that actually the benefits of estrogen therapy for women who have symptoms really does outweigh the risks. And in women who are 60 to 90, there was sort of this null effect that they found. And then women who started in their 70s to 90s did have some increased risks that may outweigh the benefits. So overall, the message is you want to take your hormone therapy earlier at the onset of menopause and if you're symptomatic. The reason the WHI was so hard to understand was because the average age of women was 63 and a half, 12 or 13 years out of menopause, so out of that window. And that's because women in their 50s simply were so busy, they weren't the ones enrolling in the WHI. They had to work and take care of their kids and take care of their parents and take care of their homes, their husbands, their pets, the whole nine. So menopause, is a difficult time. So they captured a slightly older age group in the WHI, and the majority of those women were not symptomatic. In fact, having a lot of symptoms actually excluded you from the WHI. This was not a trial designed to look at the use of hormone therapy to control symptoms. So again, if you want a whole video on behind the WHI, like behind the scenes, happy to do that. So in the initial reports, they found that it was those women in their mid-60s that when you started your hormone therapy in your mid-60s, perhaps the benefit-risk balance started to equal out. And then by the time you were gotten into your 70s, the risk was starting to outweigh the benefits. Versus if you started when you were in your 50s, the benefits, the risks, were much lower than the benefits. Now, the reason that we say that you can now take hormone therapy for as long as you need is because of the key point is the study was looking at when women started. So actually, if you start in your 60s or if you start in your 70s, that's where the risks start to slightly outweigh the benefits. Again, probably the farther you are from menopause, the more likely that balance is tilted. But that if you start within the window or you start within your 50s, you actually really retain much of those benefits. Your body has seen that tiny bit of estrogen for a long time, and therefore there is nothing magical that happens physiologically at age 60 or 65, and you can continue to take your hormone therapy. There has been some data, again, that there's an increased risk of cardiovascular incidents and stroke the year you take your hormone therapy off. Not always, but it just means that it's not this super benign thing. It is really helpful to talk to your doctor and watch you closely when you come off your hormone therapy. Every year with my patients, I address, have they taken any new medications, any new family history, any new diagnoses, any new surgeries? And that's how we decide if we should continue hormone therapy or not. Perhaps we can get away with lowering the dose. Often as we age, age, our metabolism starts to slow. And so you can actually half the dose, but still feel just as good. So there are lots of tips and tricks that you can do for that. A lot of people also ask, is it better to come off cold turkey or to wean? Both are fine. In fact, if the question of, will your symptoms return or be worse one way or the other, both are pretty equal. So if you do wean down or if you stop cold turkey and you feel great, then great. You might not need to take your hormone therapy. And I just say, let's watch your bones, your brain, the vagina, your heart, all of those things. And if you wean or you come off cold turkey and your symptoms are back and they're pretty bad, well, then consider going back on it. All right, so I hope that answers the question for you. How long can I take hormone therapy? For as long as you individually will need it. And it is a shared decision between you and your doctor. There is nothing magical that happens if you are 60 or 65 when you started your hormone therapy in that timing window or close after menopause. And that is the key difference between the old mantra where we applied the WHI findings of when women started to women who'd been on their hormone therapy for a long time and using it continuously. I hope that was helpful, guys. Thank you so much for checking out my YouTube. If you guys have been watching these and you've been following for a long time, please subscribe. It helps the algorithm know that this channel is awesome and is helping women. I love to see this community build. Thank you to all 2,223 of you who are currently following and subscribed. I love doing this for you. I love your comments. They give me all the ideas that I need for content. Have a wonderful day. And again, feel free to follow me on any of my platforms. Links to everything down below as always. Bye.